Tales of power. My story is about the power of shit. And it's a story from the Masai Mara, which is a place in Kenya, close to the Tanzania border. And it really is an extension of the Serengeti plains. Some 30,000 square kilometers of savanna, where the buffaloes roam, where the elephants walk, where the lion roars, and so on. I've been there and brought all kinds of stuff. So this is a shirt from Nairobi. This is a Masai stick, and the place is called Masai Mara. And this has to do with the conclusion of my story. So I'm not going to tell you everything, but it's actually used by the Maasai to show who is in charge. So I use it as a talking stick, but there is another side to the story. The story is about the power in the savannah. There are many animals, and let's forget for the moment about the two-legged animals, because the Maasai only came there in around 1500. They actually claim to be descendant from the Romans. A little bit weird story, but over a couple of centuries, obviously, they not only grew longer, but also darker. And, they have this very funny way of dancing. Their way of dancing is jumping in the air. They do like that, and I can't do it, but I jump very, very high. Tales of power in the jungle. And now we think that the jungle is thick rainforest, but there it's a savanna. And there are trees, and there are all kinds of animals in the trees and under the trees and in the savanna. And just to mention a few, we have zebras, we have wildebeest, we have Thompson gazelle, all kinds of gazelle, eland, buffalo, elephant, zebras, leopards, cheetahs, lions, hyenas, snakes, and many, many other smaller animals. And a few big ones, but they are rare, like the rhino. There's only 4 couples of rhinos in the park. Anyway, I've seen them all, and as I was there, I understood that there is a certain kind of loop, a certain system whereby all these animals play a role in that loop. And this story is about that loop, because one day the animals came together to choose their leader. And we all know that the mighty lion is the natural king of the savannah, because he's not only like 260 kilos and a very fierce animal, but he can attack the elephant, the zebra, the gnu, He's not fast enough to really go after the gazelle, but he is the king of the savannah. The funny thing is that the male lion really is a lazy bastard. It's the females that hunt and get the food for the children, and the mighty male lion with all his manes will snack a little bit with what his wives, because there's many, get. It's kind of funny that many animals have many wives. And so do the Maasai that live there, because if you're rich as a Maasai, which means you have more than 4 cows, you can have another wife. So 8 cows, 2 wives, and so on. I tried to buy a herd of cows, but that doesn't work. Anyway, the mighty lion claimed his steak. But all the other animals were there and they said, yeah, but wait a moment. What is our role in the whole game here? Like, for instance, the water animals. They are big. The hippopotamus in the rivers is actually the most dangerous animal. The most people are killed by the hippos, feeding at night, coming out of the water, going to the green pastures. They eat grass and stuff like that. And if a human being is between the animal and the river, they start stampeding and they are really fierce and they walk like 60 kilometers an hour. So the hippo had a claim to some position too. And so, of course, did the giraffe, because the giraffe said, I can look the furthest. When any danger comes, I can look and I can see it from above. So you, lion, you're only so small, you don't count. It's me who can spot the danger. And the gazelle, of course, would say, hey, wait a moment. We can run so fast. We can outrun you, lion, very easily. And the same story went for the cheetah. Because the cheetah can do 110 kilometers an hour and is faster than the fastest gazelle. With one little problem, that he can only do that for like a couple of 100 yards, a couple of 100 meters, and then if he didn't catch the gazelle, the deal is off. There are many more animals who have a claim to a position within the ranks of the animal world. Take the gnus, the wildebeest. Now, they look like very ugly animals, you know them. They're like a kind of buffalo. And they much resemble the old buffalo paintings in these caves in France. If you really look at that, that's not an American buffalo. That is a wildebeest. A thing that jumps very high and has short hind legs and looks much more than like the buffalo, like the bisons that we thought were in those caves. Anyway, the wildebeest says, maybe we don't look very good, but we are many. And they're right. In the Serengeti, there's more than 2 million gnus or wildebeest. And when they start their migration up north, and I've seen that, they go over the river and through the river, and they jump on top of each other, and lots of are killed. I've seen more than 1,000 animals floating in the river being killed. A terrible smell. With the vultures eating from the dead bodies. A situation that I thought, why does this happen? Why does the park wardens don't stop this? And they say, well, this is the way of nature. But anyway, the gnu said, we want the position too, because we are so many. So every animal, even the smallest animal, had a claim to fame, a claim to say, it has to be me, not the mighty lion that will have the power over the savannah. But anyway, there was a lot of discussion, and to come to the end of my story, there was one animal that stood up in the end and said, I've heard you all. I've heard all your stories, but I think the most mighty animal, the real king of the savannah, is the animal whose caca, whose shit you eat. And he looked around and he looked at the zebra. And he looked at the elephant. And he looked at the lion. And he looked at the cheetah. And he looked at all the animals. And they all bowed their head because they realized that these animals, and it was the same hyena that we started with, was the animals whose caca they eat. Because that is the real secret of the savannah. The savannah is a cycle of calcium, is a cycle of salt. All the animals are always looking for salt. The whole ecosystem is based on salt. It's the grazing animals that graze the fresh grass and take the calcium and the salt. They're eaten by the bigger animals. But the problem is the calcium, which makes the bones, doesn't get out. And there's only one animal in the whole savannah who is the final step, the final chain, the final lock in the chain of food. And that's the hyena. Because the hyena is the only animal who can eat, because of his enormous jaws, who can eat the bones from the dead animals. By eating that, the calcium gets into his body, and where does it come out? In the shit. So all the animals are always looking for hyena shit. And that's why the hyena claimed to be the most mighty animal. And then I come back to this. This stick is used by the Maasai without the nice beadlework. But it's used by the Maasai to hit the hyena, which is a very fierce animal, especially at night, right on the skull. So when a hyena attacks, that's what you need to have. Not a spear, you need to have this and crush his skull.
This is the title poem from my last book. I left no footsteps behind me. And it's a story. It's a poem which is a story. It's about traveling. I lay back, dreams of the past speeding through my mind like an express train. I'm just about able to see the flickering images, a glimpse of a city, a woman, a building, a song. At other times, they travel slowly through my head, and I relive those moments that I see there. They are the images that I use in my poetry, or tend to relate during stone storytelling sessions late at night, sitting with friends and fellow travellers in candlelit rooms hidden among the neon-lit streets of Amsterdam, for that is where I'm at the moment living. Yesterday, I walked by a bush. The scent of the flowers, fragrant and heavy in the air, reminding me of a city I visited a long time ago, a city built from the many ruins that had formed over the years due to earthquakes, war and occupation. A city that stays with me wherever I go, a city that haunts me like the velvet touch of a woman on a starlit night, a city that with its scent stays forever in my memory. I closed my eyes, and I was once again back in Quetta, a small city on the northwest frontier of Pakistan, nestled in the remains of a crater of an extinct volcano, surrounded by a graveyard, which, if you started at one place and walked the circle of tombs and graves, you passed by just about every religion that ever existed. You see, there had been an earthquake in 1935. The garrison that was the city was almost completely destroyed. People live now among the tombs. They smoke the spiders that also live there. In the end, the visions that the spiders produce drive you to insanity and death. I wanted to try the spider pipe, but I didn't have the courage. I was not ready to become sane at that time, to become insane at that time. The dry dust smell in my nostrils, flies buzzing around me, the heat burning my eyelids, the smell of shit and piss in the gutters, mixed with the smell of church from the sake khanas, tea houses where you can sit and smoke a chillum or a joint, and watch the church swallow knead the fresh pollen in his palms. He once took a knife and scraped the skin from the heel of his thumb, and together we smoked it. The years of kneading the Charlie hash had turned the skin of his hands into a smokable commodity. This is the place where the Malang gather to spend their days drinking dood chai and smoking their sacrament, the place of 1,000 chillums where smoke has nowhere to go except into your lungs. The place I spent most of the heat of the day listening to tales of the Raj, great hunts and smuggling feats. The place where I heard of the original travellers that had gone before. Eight-Finger Eddie is still out there after all this time, living the life of a minstrel and a storyteller. Big Cho from my hometown went on horseback to Tibet and Mongolia just so he could climb mountains on the way. The priest, last seen in the tea houses in Herat, trying to score heroin, he ended up shooting pantapon scored from an ex-Nazi staying at the Russian hotel. Preston Dave walked all the way from Preston, said he was looking for the ends of the earth, distributing acid wherever he went. Mr. Nice Guy passed through here, they say, on an impossible mission to convert mankind. The list is endless. They come and they go, always moving on in the search of themselves. I first encountered the Malang at the tea house of Jabara Malik Khan. I had gone, as usual, looking for a cool place to sit, read, have a smoke and a glass of ice-cold lassi. As I entered, a figure emerged from the shadows, at least 6 feet tall, wearing a top hat festooned with old cigarette packets. He stood there in the corner holding a battle axe. "Chelsea Akadina Mercy!" he yelled, and he hurled the battle axe in the direction. Thud! It went as it embedded itself into the mud wall just inches from my head. "You want we smoke chillum, hippie man?" he says, with a toothless grin, as he took my hand and crushed it in a welcoming handshake. We moved to the smoking room. It was about 15 feet long and 10 feet wide. A rough wooden bench glided around the walls. In the centre was the biggest water pipe you'd ever seen. Crouched by its side was another Malang filling the bowl with small pieces of hash, roughly each about the size of a gram. He collected one off each of the people sat around the room. I think for that first time there must have been maybe 20 people. That's 20 grams of best quality, fuck your head up dope, the like you never saw in Europe at that time. You did not even have to smoke the thing. Just sitting there breathing got you stoned. Thank you.
So indeed I went to the Himalayas, and about this period I'm going to tell a very nice story. I was tired of the Himalayas for a while, and I wanted to have the seashore. So I went to the south of India, and I looked for a place on the seashore, and I was looking for a while, and finally I found a beautiful, a kind of a cave that was 3 meters from the beach, had a coconut tree that fell down and was like an elephant trunk, which I could walk down to the beach, and it was swinging a lot, so it needed a kind of good balance. So already who could visit me had to have a very good sense of balance, otherwise he could not get there. Anyway, this place took me 1 week to prepare because it was very rough ground, but it was perfect, had some beautiful red rocks that was going to make my roof, and had an open place with a tree that had a big branch that came in, and it was really perfect. I had to pull lots of plants and rocks and to make this ground smooth. Then I had to carry from a nearby beach lots of nice little white pebbles, very smooth, and I covered the ground with it. And then I made a beautiful fireplace in the center with cow dung. I cemented it all like they do in India. And so finally my thing was ready, and I went to the village nearby where I had left my things. My mat, my cooking pot, my water pot, my few things. And they told me, you should not live there because this is the nest of the Raja Naga, that means king cobra. And I thought, well, you know, there will be space for everybody, never mind about this. I even imagined this king cobra coming to coil and sit by the fireplace very beautifully. So I'm coming to my place, and I had to go down this cliff because this cave was halfway down from this high plateau down to the beach. And here somewhere in the middle was this place. And from the top I could already see it somehow. And I saw the red rock was all black. And I thought, wow, what the hell is happening there? So I just go down very quick. And then I realized that the whole thing, the floor, the walls, everything was covered with ants. And I thought, my God, this is not possible. So after so much work, this is an ant hole, you know. What am I doing now? You know, this is... But on the other hand, I thought, no, must be a way to communicate with these things, you know. So first idea I had was a very good one. I take some leaves from a palm tree, dry leaves, made a torch, and just a little bit on the beginning as I come in. And I start to talk loud. Please go away. You are tiny. You can go to tiny holes. I'm sorry I disturb your kingdom, whatever this is, but I'm sure you can reorganize yourselves very good. And I'm a very big animal, and I need this big hole. Please go away. And then I will make a pact with you. And I took my sugar because I also brought some shopping with me, and I made a circle of sugar outside of my area. And I say, please take the sugar and go beyond the sugar. That's your area, and this area inside the sugar is my area. I already show you that I have a lot of power. If I want, I make a big fire here and you all die in 1 second, and I don't want that, so please go away. And you have half an hour, I go for a swim. I went down my elephant trunk, had my swim, come back, and then I see something incredible. There was already on the edges all the black, this black carpet was disappearing, and the red thing was invading, coming in. Big red ants, and I got some pinching me, and it was really, you know, they look like tiny lobsters, but quite big, and I say, wow, this is too much. So I made a second torch, a little bit bigger, and I go, and the same story, I say, look, you are really fierce. I can imagine that you are really frightening, but it's all relative. Look at my size, look at my fire, look what I can do. Then I have some cereals to make porridge in the morning. So I thought, well, okay, I'll put some porridge also. So I make a second line of porridge, this cereal. So, okay, same message, you know, you are small, go away, half an hour, I go for a swim. I have to do quick because I have 10 minutes. So, anyway, I go for my swim and I come back. And now it's very incredible, but it really happened. Another layer of black ants is coming on. The first ants were small. These red ants were quite big, but the next ones were really big ants, black ants with very long legs. And they were very quick. They walk over the black and the red ants, and they were very fast coming in. I was just in time when they start to come in. And I don't know where so many different kinds of ants are coming. And anyway, I made then a circle of fire because I still had time to put the dry grass and dry little things, and I made a circle around my area. And I also had some biscuits, which I start to crumble around biscuits, and I made another line of food. And, you know, I kind of send this very strong, and I speak loud, you know, to make it more clear. You know, you're really very big, and so, but you cannot frighten me. I still can burn you all if I want to, but I don't want to, so let's be friends, and we can all, you know, at least I have some movement, because this was a very lonely place. So it was funny, you know, and then I say, okay, now let's, it was already quite late, and the sun was already going low, and I want to make my first meal, and my cup of tea and everything, and I was getting a bit impatient. So I only gave them 10 minutes. So I just went out, I had a little breathe deep, and so, and then I come back, and it was then I start to look, because there was already lots of little highways, what the ants make when they walk a lot over a certain. So I could see that they were organizing. These little ants, these little black ants, were carrying all the little sugar crystals away. The red ants, I could see it was the army. They were organizing a lot, and they touch antennas, and they change directions, and so. And it was all very connected, very organized. And then the big black ants were carrying small ants from the new holes they had, the new entrances, to these circles. Because then I had this circle of food, and beyond there was all little roads going to new holes where they were going under the ground. And then from the house to the food, the big black ants were carrying 15 small black ants on the back to the food. And then sometimes I saw the black ants taking away the big pieces of biscuit so that the little ants could take the sugar from underneath. And the other ones could, it was really, they were all working together, but funnily enough, the small ones take the sugar, the red ones take the cereal for the porridge, and the big ones were taking the biscuits. And okay, this was, and then I turned to my fireplace, and I had there is a beautiful flat stone, and I found a nice beach with was mother of pearl all shining, and that was like my altar piece, let's say. I put this beautiful shell on this flat rock, and that was my precious thing in this kind of more roughness. And I look and I see this black thing in my shell. So I come close, and it was an ant that was the size of my small finger, and that's for an ant is quite big. And it had very long antennae, and I saw this, and I said, that's not possible. So I go down on my knees, and I come close, and I could really look into the eyes, and this antenna was like that, really feeling, and I was very impressed, and I say, wow, you really are, you are like Your Highness. You are very impressive. You are like, I don't know what, I never imagined that something like this could exist. But then look, this is my eyes, this is my hand, look, this is my smallest thing, my finger, and it's your size. So I am this big, then I stood up, and then I really show my greatness to this monster ant. But then it was with a lot of love. I don't know, I could really feel some vibration, very impressive, because I really make a pact with this ant. I really said, yes, I will always put little food around here, and you just keep my space clean, and it can be perfect life like this, and no, it was all right. Of course, later on, some friends came that I invite, and they made a hut nearby me, and they had an incredible problem with ants because they didn't believe in my story. They were amazed how I didn't have ants in my... And I say, yeah, I put food for them, and I talk to them to go away, and they say, yeah, I'll put DDT and this like that, and okay, and that never worked. So we had to really do my method before they could get rid of the ants. So this problem was solved. That was the first chapter of my story. The second chapter is that after a while of being there, then I am in peace with the ants, no problem. Then I start to find shit of mice in everything. My flour, my rice, my potatoes were completely hollow, and my apple, and whatever I had, food, mice, wherever I put it in clothes in baskets hanging from very thin lines from this tree that came in. And they go through the line, and there was no way to get them off my food. And at one point, I was feeling a little bit, the whole night I was really in a paranoia. I couldn't sleep, always listening when I hear the mice going to the food or so. And one day I thought, well, maybe if I feed them, how can I do this, So I made one more chapati one day, and I flat bread, what the Indian people do. Like this, you make flat bread in the fire. And... So I put pieces of bread in a hole where I saw them running. I had these rocks, a bit irregular volcanic rock. And there was some hole where I saw these mice going in. So I put food there, and I put a coconut shell also with some rice and some stuff. And I did like this. So I put this food there, and okay, I went to my life. And I think it worked, because I didn't have any more shit in my food, so it was working. Every time I put food for the mice, and one time after a few weeks or so of being there, and was perfect already, the ants were under control, the mice too, all very nice. And then one night I hear lots of sounds of mice, and I get my torch, and then the two parents were showing their 10 little young mice, but they were already big enough to climb on these rocks and jump to the tree, and then they were doing like trapeze, on 2 little feet swinging from branch to branch, and I with my torch, and I thought, no, this is ridiculous. It's like a circus, you know. But it's amazing. You know, this is incredible. But it was really happening. They were showing the family and making a little parade and going. It was like a cartoon. It was so beautiful. So no, this was also nice. And a few months later, on a very hot, very calm afternoon, everything was absolutely silent, and the coconut trees didn't move their leaves, and the crows didn't sing there because they make a lot of noise, and I didn't hear nothing, and even the sea was so quiet that I could hardly hear the sound of the waves. It was almost absolute silent and still. And I had a little music instrument, and it was broken, and I was gluing it together, and I had a kind of slow drying glue, so I was very still with holding these two pieces together until it dries. And where I'm with my instrument, with this position sitting, like one mouse, the biggest one, I think maybe the father or the mother, falls on my lap and makes me lose my work, and I say, hey, what's the matter with you? And I kick him away, and then but very quickly I think, why does he fall? So I look up from where he falls. And when I do like this, at about this distance, like this is the head of this huge king cobra. And the body is quite long, and it's coiled with the tail and the piece of the body around the rock, and it's sliding. It was coming after this mouse. And it was mouse, big mouses, and they are not really rats, but they are big kind of mouse. And then I think, wow, shit. So it was going after this mouse, and now what's going to happen? But this was only thought because on the moment I saw this thing, I absolutely got paralyzed. It was so incredible. I thought, wow, all right, no, it's not the last moments of my life. It could be, but I don't feel it is. But still, you know, I better not wink, because any movement I make can be misunderstood. So I just stay there very quiet like this. Don't move. Only my thoughts go. And then in 1 second I remember a story of Buddha that once he saw a fox with a bird in the mouth, and he felt so sorry for the bird that he took it from the mouth of the fox and let it fly. And the fox said to Buddha, how you are so cruel? And he says, no, I'm compassionate. This bird should be flying. And he says, no, because God who created the bird created me with instinct to kill birds. So I'm an old fox. I didn't eat for a week, and finally I made a catch, and you take it from my mouth. And he says, yeah, you're right, so take a piece of my flesh. So he cuts a piece of his flesh, and they put it on the scale, but the bird was heavier. So he puts more flesh, and the bird still was heavier, and he puts more. So in the end, he had to go complete on the other side of the balance to have equality with the bird. And then he understood it was a question not of flesh, but a question of life. And he said, well, all right, okay, eat me. And then the fox turned out to be some kind of deity that was there to give him a lesson about not interfering with the nature, whatever it was. And at this story, I thought, no, this is not the same story. I am already living here for a few months. It should already have been understood that this is occupied space. And I'm sorry that this mouse is gone, but you can be only very happy that I'm here feeding this mouse fat, and then you can have, and it's very good for me if you hunt some of them, because I don't have to, because they were growing, you know, I had to make more and more chapatis and more food, because they grow very fast. And when this happened, I was maybe 4 months living there. And so was already, the children also had children, and there was all over the rocks I had to put food here and there to keep them keep them out of my food. And so this I say, well, if you eat them, it's good for me, because then I had to feed them less, and you will keep it, and it's good for you because they are good, nice fat. And for this particular one that you could not hunt, as soon as I can stand up, I will go to the village, get some eggs, and I will put behind on the other side of the rock, because please, Your Highness, don't ever come back here again, because I'm totally paralyzed, and the sight of you is too much great, and please go away. And this was all in my thoughts, without moving, and with my eyes like this, just in the movement I made to look where the mouse fell from. And this took a few minutes, and I think for me it was like hours. And then I said it make with the tongue a few times, like this funny thing, very long tongue forked. And the eyes shine like a star sapphire. Was really beautiful because when it started moving, I could see this star moving also of the eye, the star sapphire that makes the eye of this king cobra. And then I see this head going more and more away from me. I could hardly see the movement. I only noticed that the head was getting farther and farther away. Then it went, and then it took me maybe half an hour before I could move, because I felt like jelly, completely shaky and so. But then, all right, then I went to get some eggs, and I put them there. And, well, then that was it. So I still lived there for 10 months. And with my ants, the mice, the snake, the crows. So good. So that was my story for tonight. Thank you for listening. What's the matter with you? And I kick him away, and then but very quickly I think, why does he fall? So I look up from where he falls. And when I do like this, at about this distance, like this is the head of this huge king cobra. And the body is quite long, and it's coiled with the tail and a piece of the body around the rock, and it's sliding. It was coming after this mouse. And it was mouse, big mouses, and they are not really rats, but they are big kind of mouse. And then I think, wow, shit. So it was going after this mouse, and now what's going to happen? But this was only thought, because on the moment I saw this thing, I absolutely got paralyzed. It was so incredible. I thought, wow, all right, no, it's not the last moments of my life. It could be, but I don't feel it is. But still, I better not wink, because any movement I make can be misunderstood. So I just stay there very quiet like this. Don't move. Only my thoughts go. And then in 1 second I remember a story of Buddha that once he saw a fox with a bird in the mouth, and he felt so sorry for the bird that he took it from the mouth of the fox and let it fly. And the fox said to Buddha, "How you are so cruel?" And he says, "No, I'm compassionate. This bird should be flying." And he says, "No, because God who created the bird created me with instinct to kill birds. So I'm an old fox. I didn't eat for a week, and finally I made a catch, and you take it from my mouth." And he says, "Yeah, you're right. So take a piece of my flesh." So he cuts a piece of his flesh, and they put it on the scale, but the bird was heavier. So he puts more flesh, and the bird still was heavier, and he puts more. So in the end, he had to go complete on the other side of the balance to have equality with the bird. And then he understood it was a question not of flesh, but a question of life. And he said, "Well, all right, okay, eat me." And then the fox turned out to be some kind of deity that was there to give him a lesson about not interfering with the nature, whatever it was. And at this story, I thought, no, this is not the same story. I am already living here for a few months. It should already have been understood that this is occupied space. And I'm sorry that this mouse is gone, but you can be only very happy that I'm here feeding this mouse fat, and then you can have, and it's very good for me if you hunt some of them, because I don't have to, because they were growing, I had to make more and more chapatis and more food, because they grow very fast. And when this happened, I was maybe 4 months living there. And so was already, the children also had children, and there was all over the rocks I had to put food here and there to keep them out of my food. And so this I say, well, if you eat them, it's good for me because then I had to feed them less and you will keep it. And it's good for you because they are good, nice fat. And for this particular one that you could not hunt, as soon as I can stand up, I will go to the village, get some eggs, and I will put behind on the other side of the rock because, please, Your Highness, don't ever come back here again because I'm totally paralyzed and the sight of you is too much great, and please go away. And this was all in my thoughts without moving, and with my eyes like this, just in the movement I made to look where the mouse fall from. And this took a few minutes, and I think for me it was like hours. And then I said it make with the tongue a few times, like this, a funny thing, very long tongue forked. And the eyes shine like a star sapphire. It was really beautiful because when it started moving, I could see this star moving also of the eye, the star sapphire that makes the eye of this king cobra. And then I see this head going more and more and more away from me. I could hardly see the movement. I only noticed that the head was getting farther and farther away. Then it went, and then it took me maybe half an hour before I could move because I felt like jelly, completely shaky and so. But then, all right, then I went to get some eggs and I put them there. And, well, then that was it. So I still lived there for 10 months. And with my ants, the mice, the snake, the crows. So good. So that was my story for tonight. Thank you for listening.
Hey. Well, I think that's it for tonight, in a sense. That we had one more storyteller, but as we said, it's not feeling very well. Has anybody got a story they want to share, or otherwise we can have coffee or drink, and then again would be a good opportunity to chat a little bit, and find out more about each other. Then again, thank you very much, for being here tonight. The next evening is going to be February the 3rd. And it's going to be about Amsterdam stories. So it's going to be very much people who lived, for many years in Amsterdam. There's a theme to it. It will be about Amsterdam and whatever happened in their life in Amsterdam. So February the 3rd at terrorsofpower.com, and then I will put more information as we get together the storyteller as well. Thank you, and enjoy coffees and teas, and then again. Let's find out about each other. Thanks.